What's up, guys? My name's Splice Knight and welcome back to Reflections. Today on Reflections we'll actually be talking about the, of course, always fantastic to watch RWBY and what's coming forward with Season 5? Season 5. I'm also actually repping some merch from the RoosterTeeth store, so if you guys haven't checked it out, I really would do that. Anyway, guys, without further ado, let's talk about So, when we last left off, we had a lot of interesting stuff going together. Obviously, a lot of people are saying that we've got Weiss and RWBY kind of going to be merging, as well as the rest of Team Ranger. They're going to be meeting up. We've got Crow meeting up with Oscar and Ozpin in the same body, which is going to be interesting. I'd like to see how they interplay. Then, of course, we've got Yang, who has sort of gotten over her PTSD. To be honest, the way it was played off, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, they got it over such a stupid way, blah, 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 whatever.
Well, I guess you lost some brain cells along with that arm.
To be honest with you, I think that the way they've developed it, I think it's actually going to come back, the way they've kind of framed it. I think it's going to be sort of, she's had this time to practice with her arm.
I think I'm doing just fine.
She's had this time to, try and refresh, but I think that when her first real fight comes in, she's going to have some sort of moment where her normal arm would respond in a certain way, and it doesn't. And it might even jar her in that regard. But also, coming up in the future, talking about our last girl, we've got Blake. So, the interesting thing that we've got going on with Blake is she's been even more far removed than most of the other girls. They've all kind of been self-contained, but they're all heading in a similar direction. Yang herself, we don't know if she's heading for her mother or for RWBY. Personally, I think it would be great if she ends up going for Raven, her mom, because that's an interesting story arc to continue to develop. Especially when you think of the fact that Yang now have being mutilated in a sense, and dealing with her mother, who seems to be very much all about the power and domination and dominion that is very kind of evident in these stronger characters within the RWBY universe. Whether it be Ozpin and his ability to just dominate a battlefield despite losing to Cinder when she finally had all of the Maiden's abilities. But also, you've got all this interesting shit that's going on as far as Blake kind of coming from all the way in Menagerie to now going to wherever the White Fang is. I don't know if that's going to be in Mistral, or if that's still going to be in Menagerie somewhere, or if it's going to be somewhere in Haven, in that area.
And even more who will try to gain everything they can from their sorrow.
Because they have kind of occupied that place, even though they're fighting it off from Glinda, the Good Witch, which I guess they probably won't show, or they'll get a new actress for. Anyway, that's a thing for another day. However, the main thing, guys, being that I think later on we're going to see, obviously, Blake try and reform the White Fang, which I think will end up breeding two factions to it. We'll have some sort of a civil war.
The White Fang is evil, I totally called it, and I'm bringing your daughter back!
And I think it would be interesting to see Raven and Yang actually have this relationship where they're trying to gain each other's trust.
They were your family.
You have a very skewed perception of that word.
Similar to the way where Blake and Adam will actually be interacting in a bit of a tense situation, and we'll have those two forces clash, which I think will be really interesting because obviously we have set where Blake ditched Yang at the end, and obviously Yang is pretty broken up about that.
What about...
And Blake ran. Sun saw her go.
So with that going forward, you think that there's probably going to be a lot of tension in that regard. So with that in mind, I think that an interaction between them will be very interesting. A lot of people obviously have been talking about how, oh, Bumblebee, it's got to be canon, it's got to be whatever, and people are freaking out saying, oh, well, Black Sun's got a lot more story-based evidence right now. And, there are points to each, Personally, I don't really care which one goes where. I think that Black Sun does have a lot more story-based chemistry right now, even though a lot of people would probably rip me apart for saying that. Sorry guys, it's just what it is. Now going forward, we've got the reality that, if anything, I think seeing a physical confrontation between Blake and Yang will be really interesting, because you've got the emotional tension between the two, where Blake is finally making some character development. This confrontation between her and Yang might serve to actually throw her back into that melancholy sort of state, which would actually be warranted for once, as opposed to just sort of her moping and running away from her problems, as seems to be her default action.
I'm here to rest, to figure things out, and to see my family.
Now, I'm really interested to see that and maybe have Blake develop in an interesting way where they tangent off, where she maybe learns from this confrontation with Yang and has to obviously build up that trust with her again, because honestly, ditching her at the absolute worst moment is such a dick move.
Why?
I don't know. And I don't care.
You can make your own choices, sure. But you don't get to make ours.
Anyway, with that said, guys, I think that's one of the more interesting dynamics that I'm looking forward to in Season 5, if it does happen, or the building blocks of that start to be set in motion. Whatever happens, I'm excited to see what happens in Season 5 in that regard. Moving on to the rest of Season 5, I think there's some interesting seeding between Ranger and Crow, where obviously now that they've got some time to actually settle down and really kind of talk to Crow and understand, they might even have some training sequences or something to do with that, with them explaining why they're looking for the person they're looking for. And obviously they've set up that where they've been trying to travel this whole time has actually kind of been under Salem's influence this whole time. So seeing a full-scale confrontation, obviously we've got the guy who's essentially a weird ripoff of Nikola Tesla kind of feel to him, and the the headmaster of that school, they are kind of in collusion, they're working together, and they're really the only headmaster we haven't really seen. With that said, guys, that's kind of where I'm thinking stuff's going to go right now. But yeah, so it's interesting to see the fact that Salem's got someone under her thumb as far as the schools and all that sort of thing. So with that kind of thought and process in mind, we got to think, where exactly are they going to take this? How is that going to play in? Is it going to be kind of like a weird Ozpin reset? Except this time we know that it's malicious? Or is it going to be essentially, you know, they try to attend and they slowly get suspicious, and then they essentially end up flipping the tables and almost becoming like Ozpin is Salem and they are Cinder, and trying to sort of attack and dismantle this stronghold that Salem has clearly developed between this headmaster who's actually amicable to her cause. So that'll be interesting where that goes, the developments on that end. Anyway, guys, that's kind of that for the most part. I'm looking forward to seeing what Tyrion does in the coming seasons, what we'll see of Oscar and Ozpin meld, as well as obviously Crow and Raven. I want to see some more interactions between those two, because there's clearly some bad blood between the two.
Make this one a double.
And obviously there might even be a maiden in the mix, so we'll see where that goes. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Splice Night on my thoughts, what's coming for Season or Volume 5, and what even may be in the works for Season 6, because we don't know how long it'll take for the Yang and Blake confrontation to build up and get to the right point, because there are only so many episodes and we're following so many tangential stories. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Splice Night out.
He told us some things that you're gonna want to hear. Things I can't trust will make it to you in this letter.